On today's episode of Body Banging, we're talking about a big pain point in the collision industry. One that may not pop to mind when I say, what's a big pain point for you? You may not think measuring. Well, it actually is. And we're going to talk all about it today with our good buddy, John Shoemaker, on today's episode of Body Bangin'.
Welcome to Body Bangin', your podcast for all things body. Auto body, that is. And now, introducing Body Bangin's host, Micki Woods of Micki Woods Marketing. Micki is a former auto collision center owner and is now a marketing and business development expert to shops across the globe.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Body Bangin'. Today, we are excited. I'm excited to have my guest on, John Shoemaker. And John's been around for quite a while in our industry. He was in the military, actually, and started working on vehicles, working on everything under the sun, and really finally realized that he loved the collision industry, the body shops. How did that happen, John? You just fell in love, didn't you? You can't help it.
Well, it's really, once you start getting a little bit of the paint fumes in you, it's hard to walk away from them.
Yeah.
Back when I started, there was real stuff in paint. If you didn't wear a respirator, you were dizzy for a day or two.
Yeah, no waterborne.
Yeah. So it was exciting.
Yeah. So John, then after working in the collision industry, banging on cars and all that kind of fun stuff, went and actually did consulting for body shops and did that for a while. But now BASF has lured him into their web and he works with BASF shops doing consulting with their shops. And that's really exciting. What a great opportunity, John, for you to still be able to do what you love and help out shops all across the country. I would imagine you do quite a bit of traveling then.
Yeah, COVID kind of slowed things down, but we're starting to pick back up again. I'm really excited about SEMA.
Yes.
Heading out there again, seeing all these people. I was at the Northeast show a couple of weeks ago, and that was another good event. We didn't see a lot of people out, but the people that did come out were people that wanted to be there. And of course, got to see a lot of industry friends and stuff like that. So yeah, it's great getting to be able to be moving out and about again. And
yes, absolutely. Very exciting. Well, on today's podcast, we are talking about the importance of measuring. And John and I were kind of doing some spitball ideas of what can we talk about? What does the industry, there's a lot of things the industry has in regards to pain points, but this is one thing that John's really been seeing specifically in the shops he's working with. So we're going to talk a little bit today about measuring the vehicles. What seems to be just in general, does that just seem to be across the board, just a massive issue, John?
Well, it's kind of, people do it now. Well, if I need to,
right.
I'll get a measurement, which means that, okay, this didn't fit. So something's wrong.
Yeah.
And you're a third or 2/3 into the repair process. But really that needs to be part of the blueprint process.
Right.
Everybody's anxious. Let's tear the parts off. Let's see all that's damaged. Well, a lot of what could be damaged might not necessarily be what you can see.
Right.
That's where the measurements come in. Before you take anything off, we pre-scan the vehicle, we dive down into the electrics. What we need to dive into the structure as well.
Yeah.
Because vehicles are made differently. I mean, like when I started, the front end of a car got damaged. You unbolted the front end of the car, took it off, put another one on.
Right.
Now there's all kinds of structure in there. And now there's structure in there with dissimilar metals. Metals designed to crush. And, I always think of a car accident as a toddler tripping and falling.
Okay.
And if you think of their elbows as the front wheels, right? So when they fall, they land on the front wheels, right? What happens to their back legs and their butt?
Yeah,
Well,
kicks up.
It kind of kicks up.
Right.
Same thing that happens with a car. And unless we kind of get down in there and measure this, before we order parts, before we take parts off, we might possibly find out that we don't need to take any parts off because the way this vehicle is twisted, it's not going to be repairable.
Right.
You know? And I was at a shop, you're talking about travel. I was in Colorado and working with the shop. And one of the things I was trying to help them do is get cars through the shop, you know? And I just noticed this one vehicle had just been sitting there, you know? So I keep a little wax pencil in my pocket and I was just making little hash marks on it, just trying to see how long it was going to sit there before somebody actually moved it.
Yeah.
And by the time I stopped somebody and got them to move it, you would have thought I was making marks in a jail cell. How long it was going to take me to get out, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, why is this here? And they said, well, it's not really a repair. It was sent to us, brought to us by a customer because the insurance company told them to bring it to us because it was repaired somewhere else. And that shop said what the customer was complaining about wasn't related to the accident. Okay. So I said, well, what was the accident? And they said, oh, it was hitting the left front. The guy slid off the road, went into a ditch. Okay. So what's he complaining about? He says, well, now he's got an air noise at both the front doors and his right rear door doesn't stick. And the other shop said there's no way that's related. It must have been like that before.
Right.
I said, well, it's a simple fix. You know, we kind of did a little visual and I saw some hammer marks and different things on the lower rail and stuff like that. And I said, well, I can see they worked on the rail. I said, why don't you call that shop and get the measurements, find out what the measurements told. So they called back and said, well, we talked to the tech. He didn't feel the need to measure it because he was able to pull it around on the floor and get everything to fit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So red flag number one, right?
Yeah.
So I said, well, let's measure it. You know, let's just stop. We'll use it as an exercise. Let's show your guys how to measure. We got it up on the frame machine. We got it supported. And I says, okay, we want to measure the center core, the 4 points that everything is built off, the center core. Some people call it the torque box, right? So we measured that. And we found that some things were twisted around. I says, okay, now let's go to the outer 4 corners. So we did that. We found some more things that were twisted around. So by doing those 4 measurements, and anybody can do these during blueprinting, it's the center mass, those 4 corners there, firewall, rear package tray, and then the outer points on the end of each rail. You'll see exactly what this vehicle is doing. And what we found was there was actual torsional twist in that car. So that right rear door was dragging because the right rear of that car had actually lifted up.
Right.
Causing it to drag on the pillar.
Right.
And on the lock pin. And then, so I took dollar bills out of my pocket, and that's how I used to check for air gaps on cars. You know? And yeah, there was distinct where the weather strip wasn't even hidden along the windshield pillar.
Wow.
So doing a little bit more measuring, we found that the actual aperture of the door was twisted forward. So that's telling me that when that little kid fell down, that right rear came up hard and it actually shifted the A pillars forward.
Right.
And the guy's looking, he says, yeah, we'd have never thought. We probably would have fixed that car the exact same way.
Right.
Yeah, after I beat you, you know, you're not in my shop, you're not fixing it, you know.
Yeah.
You got our paint on the wall. No, you don't fix things like that. That's why I'm here, so we know how to fix it right.
Right.
And I said, that is why your frame machine should be in your blueprint area. You need to be able to measure these things. You'll see telltale signs. You know, people go, oh, if the gaps are aligned and everything, I don't need to measure it. Well, the gaps on this were pretty close.
Yeah.
So especially after the tech jacked everything around.
Oh, I bet.
Right?
I bet.
But the vehicle was telling you something. You know, I teach my estimating class. You know, people think I'm crazy. Hey, the car will tell you where it's hurt. You just got to look and listen. You know?
Right. Yeah.
You hear a drag on the lock pin. You know, something's out of alignment. So technically, this car, it was a little SUV, was a total loss.
Yeah.
It could not be repaired because of the torsional twist in it.
Yeah. Right.
So now we got a beautifully painted, nice. I mean, it looks good from a distance,
Right.
know.
Right.
It's not structurally safe.
Right. Right.
So why did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
One, because it wasn't measured. But why did the vehicle move like that?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what it's designed to do.
Yeah.
Manufacturers work very, very hard to keep that center core functional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that right rear door drug a little bit, but it opened.
Right.
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 That's their goal.
Right.
So everything around that is going to crush. And if it makes it twist, that's all right. But our goal is that the doors are going to open.
Yeah. Right.
So you have heavy structure in the center and then softer structure on the outer perimeters that are designed to twist and to hit.
Right.
So it's more important to measure a vehicle because we can't see it.
Exactly.
And
yeah. And so how many shops do you think that you work with? Like, I guess a better question would be, what percentage of shops do you think, based off of what you're seeing, are actually measuring in the blueprinting phase before it goes into any type of production?
The only ones that I'm seeing, and I don't know if I can give you a percentage, but the ones that I see doing are the ones that work on the higher end vehicles because it's specified in the repair procedures. Right. That you have to measure the structure.
Yep.
And I was just in a shop the other day, local to me. I was at a meeting at a Votech school, and this shop's right around the corner. So I just stopped in to say hi. And the body guy hands me this. He goes, look, the insurance company wrote, floor pull. Go ahead and just pull it. It's hitting the left rear. Like pocket all shoved up, floor crinkled, rail bent.
Oh boy!
It said floor pull. He says, "Hey, I gave you 4 hours to pull it on the floor. Let me know what moves." Unless you have it on a frame machine and sit down and actually pull this car. The measurement system has to be engaged when you're in, because you got to know what is actually moving.
Right.
You can be clamped really tight on the backside of that left rear rail, but it might be pulling, up around the package tray or beyond.
Right.
But without watching the measurements as you pull it, you have no idea what's doing. So if you're pulling this on the floor, you're doing a good job of making stuff look right.
Yes.
What are you tearing? What is actually moving to make that look right?
Yes.
You could be breaking welds on the inner well house, and you don't know it because you're just pulling as hard as you can on that rail, trying to get it out to see if that floor is going to straighten out.
Well, I think that's the biggest problem is we're fixing these vehicles so they look good and then off they go because we're just trying to get through them quickly. Where the problem really lies in, is that vehicle safe? Is it safe and repaired properly? Who knows? We're assuming so because it looks good and it seems to all match.
Everybody says, oh, we got to make this vehicle so it looks prior to the accident. Right. No, we have to repair it so it will function as designed when it gets in that second accident.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
I'm not going to dump my daughter off the bus, but there was a second accident, and that vehicle had to work right. Right. If not, she's not safe. Right?
That's the concern. Yeah.
If we've pulled that car on the floor, got the rail right, and we destroyed the inner structure of that wheelhouse assembly, which is providing the safety into the vehicle, and that car gets hit again, we did a good job at holding that rail rigid, maybe welded some tabs on there, changed the chemistry of the metal, but then that wheelhouse totally collapsed.
Yeah. Scary stuff.
Yes.
Scary stuff.
measuring and properly aligning the structures, what's going to change all that. And you say, well, I don't want to have another total loss. Well, when do you want, that vehicle's going to be a total loss.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
It's going to be a total loss.
Yeah.
It depends on when you actually find out. Is it at the beginning?
Yeah.
Before you've put a bunch of parts on it? Or is it at the end after it's gone back to the customer and they've brought it back for a concern? What if that customer said, oh, that's just a little noise and I don't use that right rear door much anyhow? Right?
Yeah.
He had a compromised vehicle.
Totally. Yeah. It's frightening when you think about it. Because, I'm in the industry, I just look at things so differently, but I see people driving around and you can tell the vehicle's been fixed. And even and it's bad when you can look at it and be like, oh,
right.
That car's been fixed. And that is clearly not fixed in alignment. And God, they're not measuring a dang thing.
Exactly.
Oh man. I just think about putting myself or my family, like you were saying, kids in a car and sending them off. Bye. It's kind of like the plastic surgery of the vehicle. We're doing plastic surgery on something, but we're not fixing what's really the issue inside.
Fixing the outside.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the frightening part. So clearly, most of our shops are not doing it because they're not being required to. And I think part of it is they're not really taking to heart potentially the severity of the issue, right? I think if they really took it to heart, like how serious this is, the perspective might start to shift.
I agree with that.
Personally.
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, enough shops haven't got burnt yet. If we want to say that.
Yeah.
Not enough people had to buy back an SUV like that shop did in Colorado.
Yeah.
Which is an ugly process. Nobody gets better from that.
Right.
We've all read papers, how shops have gone out of business because of this. So nobody gets better from having to buy a vehicle back.
Yeah.
And I think in different times when shops are slow, they're eager to get in and let's get the technicians busy. Let's get this vehicle repaired.
Yeah.
And so they work off of a sheet that a third party's given them. They start the process and they go, oh, that doesn't look right. So then they stop. And hopefully they stop soon enough before they have a lot of invested in it. Because, I'm going to say it again, I don't want a total loss, but that vehicle is a total loss. It all depends on when you find out.
Yeah.
And how much it's going to cost you once you found out.
True. Well, I think another one of the issues is shops potentially not understanding how to measure properly. So they just skip it because it's like they don't really know where to begin with all of it, or they'll do some, but they don't really understand what that totally looks like. Do you think that's a problem that you're seeing on your end?
Yes, because, I get called out a lot to do shop layouts and get to, hey, where can I move this? Where can I gain more space? And hey, do you think I can move that frame machine outside because we don't use it that much?
Oh, God.
Yeah. So the education process, for that, but Chief, Carliner, Spaneezy, they all have awesome training programs for their equipment.
Yeah.
And if you look at, you walk into a shop and they're ICAR Gold Class. Well, if they're ICAR Gold Class, that means they have somebody trained in structural repair, right? Well, if you look at ICAR's definition, that is the person that should be doing that measuring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going to say that every vehicle needs to be measured? Say no, but once you start looking at this, I bet you shops will start measuring 60 to 70% more cars.
Yeah.
When they start paying attention to that.
Right.
A bumper scratched or somebody, went down the side of a door, there's no real deflection. Maybe not. But anytime any structure is hurt, it has to be measured.
Yeah.
Because if that left upper rail, just like on this little SUV, it went down in the ditch, and the lower rail lifted up, and then the upper rail kind of swayed back,
Mm-hmm.
To inside and back. Well, you just can't pull that.
Right. Right.
You have to measure it first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have to watch it measure as you're pulling
Right.
it.
Right.
To see what is giving.
Mm-hmm.
And that lower rail is made out of totally different metal than that upper rail. So one is going to give
faster or
before the
slower.
other, so
Yeah.
you're not pulling them as one assembly. You're making several pulls, which requires several measurements.
Mm-hmm.
And to get people to understand that they need to do that, we're not fixing it today on a podcast, but we're we're definitely planting the seed where I'm hoping because of this, people look at those cars just a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
It took us a while to
mm-hmm.
tap them in the back of the head and say, hey, you got to pre-scan cars because there's things broken that you don't know about.
True. Very true.
So we're just going to have to keep tapping them in the back of the head and say, you got to measure these cars.
Yeah. Yep.
There's problems in these cars that you cannot see, just like you cannot see without, scanning and following those OEM procedures on what to do when you find these codes.
Right.
Hook it up to that machine and let that machine tell you, hey, the damage is here, but there's some deflection back here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is changing processes and procedures. The shop is used to running a certain way. This is the way they've been running. This is the way they're going to continue running. And when you add in something different or more, in this case, it's kind of like, well, how does that fit in? So it's uncomfortable. First off, and anytime you're changing a procedure, it's uncomfortable. Oh, now we got to go do this. And how does that work with our flow? And we're not used to that. Anytime we do something that we're not used to doing, there's an uncomfortability factor, if that's even a word.
We'll use it.
It is today. So, and I understand that and why shops might be a little resistant to it because they're not used to it. It might, at first, it feels like it messes with the workflow. It may feel like you're slowing you down. But if you think about it, kind of like you were talking about initially when we first started talking, is better to fix it up front. Imagine the time you save yourself if you go measure the thing up front so that at the end of the repair, everything's fit properly. You are having less vehicles coming back for whistling noises and road noise and whatever else because it hasn't fit properly. So yes, it's different. It may feel like it's causing you more time because you want to get that vehicle in process and get banged on, but best thing to do it up front because it's saving you, I guess, in the long run is what I'm saying. It may feel more cumbersome up front, but it will save you on the back end.
Right. And it's just you don't need to pre-scan vehicles just so you post-scan them. Okay, right. So you're going to post-scan a vehicle and you're going to find out all these restraint systems are
totally
messed up. And now you got a $3,000 supplement and this car's close to a total loss. Oh, what do you do now?
Yes.
So we started pre-scanning cars.
Right.
And you're 100% right. But I think the biggest fear is the insurance company's not going to pay for it.
Right.
But if you have to measure a car, no matter where you do it, beginning, middle, or the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a scan. If you do it up front, you're going to find something and they're going to pay you for finding that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, oh, we'll pay for that pre-scan, but only if you find something.
Right, right.
So if you've got a fender that's kind of leaning underneath the hood on the front of a car, measure it because you're going to find something.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got that labor identified.
Yeah.
Right. You have to pull that upper rail and it's either swayed, it's crushed, it's something.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to correct that.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of those pulls you charge differently for.
Yeah.
So you're actually using the measurements off that initial setup.
Yeah.
To add labor items.
Right. Right. And you have metrics to document.
It's off 3 millimeters. It's down 4 millimeters.
Right.
So now you've got these tools, using your tool to help you identify more labor options. You know, and granted, if you don't find anything, they're probably not going to pay you for it. But if you've got a fender tucked up underneath a hood, or you're open up a door and it's popping on the fender, you're going to find something if you measure right.
So how long do you think for the shops, if they're listening right now and thinking, we really need to start measuring, we're not doing it consistently, we're just kind of doing it here and there. What do you think the average time, like if we were to tell them, okay, if you took an extra X amount of minutes out of your day to measure this thing, how much time do you think would be adequate to spend on measuring it? How much time do you think that would add into the process?
I think probably an hour and a half max.
Okay.
You know, just not fixing anything.
Yeah.
Getting it up there, getting it in the jigs. And some measuring systems don't require you to put up in the jigs. There's some that you can measure on the floor.
Right.
You know? So an hour and a half max, but you will get that back 3, 4, 5 times by identifying those things that need to be corrected, or finding out it's a total loss on day one rather than 2 days after you delivered the car and the customer's coming back with noises.
Yeah. Well, and I work fairly closely with a lot of higher ups in the insurance company. They won't come on here because they have strict regulations. But when I talk with them about the issues shops are having and what can shops be doing to kind of navigate these waters, especially when it's such a push-pull type situation with insurance company and body shops, you know, for the most part, they will say if the shop has documentation, that makes our life actually easier, because then we can run it up the flagpole and, you know, it's done, because we can't argue with metrics. So, you know, and that's why they're so specific on wanting the pictures and this, that, and you can go and you can argue, well, I say this vehicle needs X, Y, or Z. Well, the insurance company says, like in your example, well, the insurance company says to do A, B, or C. Well, we just measured it and look, therefore we need to, now you put yourself back in the driver's seat because you have data. It's now not considered an opinion because now you have data behind it. And I know on the insurance side, they actually would prefer that because it just takes the argument, the conversation out of it more so.
100%. You know, in my damage appraisal documentation class, I think I've done it 35 times this year, both virtually and in person, you know, and that's the number one course that I have that's requested over the top of estimating, over top of the blueprinting, because they say, okay, yeah, we got that part, but how do we get this down on paper? How do we get it so everybody understands it? And I don't teach the course so the insurance company understands it. If you write it so the vehicle owner understands it, if you write it so the technician on the shop floor understands it, everybody else is going to understand it, because you're going to put in there, you know, a line, left upper rail, you know, correct sway, 4 millimeters.
Yeah.
You're telling the tech exactly what you want them to do.
Right.
You know, not pull rear body panel, you know, make it look good, you know?
Yes. It's so generic. Right.
You're being very specific of what you need to do. You're adding these individual labor operations all based off these measurements that you've taken. So as you say, when the insurance company sees those, they go, oh, wow, this thing was worse than we thought.
That's right. Because they don't know.
They have no
but
idea.
Neither did you.
it puts the shop in the driver's seat to be the professional.
100%.
And the more often you can do that, the better off you're going to be end over end.
Yes.
Because now they're coming and looking at you and say, hey, you know, and then you build that reputation of your shop.
Totally.
And they go, hey, I know it. You know, the car's there. And they say, hey, I'm going to need some pull time on this because we've measured it. And I've got to line this. I've got to line this. I've got to line this. And they know that you're going to have the measurements to back it up. You're not going to get any pullback.
Right. Exactly. I agree. 100%.
You're helping them understand what's wrong with that vehicle.
Yeah.
Right? Just like you do in a, you know, pre-scan. Hey, you know, my airbag control module is bad because I did the pre-scan and I followed this diagnostic tree and that's what it led to. So yes, I need this part.
Yes.
It's not put all the airbags in, and if you still need it, because you've done the diagnostics up front.
Yeah.
Anything you're doing on the structure, you're doing that diagnostic up front.
Right.
Diagnosing the stability of the structure.
Yeah, I love it. The only thing, kind of playing devil's advocate, that I can see is we've got so many shops right now that are so short-staffed, because trying to get good people in is just another struggle that we've done podcasts on.
Right. It's
so it's difficult, even an hour and a half, having one of your head techs having to come and do measurement when they're already trying to do the job of like 3 people in one. I can understand from the shop side how that feels really heavy. That's a lot. It may seem like a big undertaking. And potentially then the fix I can think of is, if you're going to need to spend a little bit more time on these vehicles to be able to accommodate that measuring, which we know is so important and so helpful to get the car fixed properly and get it fixed probably more quickly, because now you know exactly what you're doing, is potentially shop scheduling. I have a lot of my shops scheduling now customers to come in so that they have time to properly go through it. And knowing they're short-staffed, they can't have an all hands on deck type deal because they don't have as much staff and they're hunting for good staff people. So potentially scheduling those customers in to give yourself time to get through the repair properly. Otherwise, we're trying to jam things through. And you and I both know that's a recipe for disaster all on its own, not including the measuring issue.
Yeah. Bring in less cars and fix them right.
Right.
Make more money on those individual cars instead of trying to bring in more cars. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Schedule the process.
Yes. And then when they leave, they leave and you have comfort knowing you did everything. You ticked all the boxes.
Right.
And the chance of them needing to come back, less. So, more efficient on every level, really, if you think about it.
And the cars have to be measured at some point because the fender doesn't fit. Oh, now I got to put up on the frame machine. I got to measure and see why.
Yeah. Yeah.
It all has to happen. It just depends on where do you do it.
True. That's very true. Yeah. So why not put it up front?
It has to happen. If that fender's not going to fit, right? If that fender is peeking underneath the hood when you're writing your damage appraisal, giving it to a tech and telling them to put a new fender on it, it's not going to fit right without some kind of measuring, some kind of alignment.
Yeah.
So you got to do it at some point.
Yeah. No magic occurs.
No,
in that
there's
little
no
time
magic
space.
in those little boxes.
No fairy dust is getting sprinkled on that fender to make that sucker fit properly. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'm glad that we had a chance to kind of talk about it. I think that's the good thing of us having these dialogue is, like you kind of said, tapping people. It's putting this in front of shop owners and managers and technicians, office managers, whoever. Let's get this on the radar because it is so important. And even if you just do a few more and work yourself into it, or change your whole process and procedure of how it's going to work when a vehicle comes in, either or, but we can do better. And it's for everyone's benefit. It's for everyone's benefit, not just yours, not just the customers, not just, it's for everybody. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I appreciate it, John. Is there anything else you wanted to say on the topic? I think this is amazing. And I really hope our listeners take this to heart and make a few changes.
And I think, the right shops, I always say, the right shops listen and act. The other shops are going to try and react.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So
that's
be that
true.
progressive shop and do what we've got to do up front.
Yeah.
Anybody can react, but it takes the right person to be proactive and jump in there and do it right.
So I have a question for you, John. If there are shops listening that potentially aren't BASF shops, but would love to do some work with you, do you do work with any shops other than BASF shops?
No.
Only
unfortunately. But, I've gone into some shops that have target shops that, hey, if I could get this help,
Okay. All right. So specifically if you're listening.
I talk to anybody
Yeah.
I will talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I can't go into anybody's shop that doesn't have BASF products, but I'll talk to anybody.
Okay. So if somebody's listening and have some questions or whatnot, they can always reach out to you, and I'll put your contact information in the notes.
Yep.
And specifically, if you are a BASF shop, then you have access for John to potentially come out or do something virtually or however it is, that you're doing it. But it's great to have people like you in our industry that are such an amazing resource and are helping shops on a daily basis to be better, to achieve more, to be more profitable, to be more efficient. I think that's everybody's goal.
Absolutely.
And to smile through it all.
That's it. Just one day, one step at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I lost all my hair running body shop, so I'm just trying to help people keep theirs.
There you go. Perfect. Well, I guess that wraps it up for today, John. Thank you so much for coming on and offering to come on and chit chat about this very important topic. And for everybody else, we'll see you on next episode of Body Bangin'. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Micki.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have some incredible topics and guests coming your way you will not want to miss. If you are watching on YouTube and don't want to miss the latest and greatest, you'll want to hit the bell after subscribing, so you will get a pop-up each time a video podcast goes live. To our devoted fans, would you mind paying it forward and sharing this little gem with someone else you think may benefit from it? Much love from all of us here at Body Bangin', all things auto body.